a girl from Homer get a job where people clap for her? I don't know. I won the lottery. Welcome back to More Up North. I'm so glad you're joining us. And we've got Tom Begich here, which I'm really excited he's here. He's worked on over 150 different political campaigns. He was the state's expert witness for campaign finance reform. That went well. and reapportionments for the 1992 and 2002 reapportionments. Tonight, Tom's going to be talking about the math and statistics about Lisa Murkowski's chance of winning a write-in vote, and just more of a history, because so many people want to poll Alaska, want to tell us what our numbers are, and God knows we all get rogue and mavericky during election time, and it's hard to track, but he's probably, he's actually the best at it, and math's kind of hot. I like it. Ooh. So we're going to be doing math. So Tom, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Shannon. Glad to be here.
This is like our little Glenn Beck thing.
But I am the anti-Glenn Beck. Let me just be clear about that.
Yes. So because, you know, numbers, chalkboard's a good thing. So a couple of things I wanted to hit on first. And one of those things is that there are scarier things to America and Alaska than sending a Democrat to Washington.
That's absolutely true. Sending Joe Miller to Washington is a pretty scary thing.
It is, but we have such a rich history.
We do.
In Alaska of sending Democrats to Washington that have changed not just things for Alaska, but for the whole country.
No, you're absolutely right. You know, Alaska's got a rich history of Democrats, and we're going to talk a little bit about Ernest Greening, but Bob Bartlett, of course, my father, Nick Begich, Ralph Rivers, you know, Mike Gravel. The number of Democrats have come out of here and gone to Washington, D.C. and made a difference, not just for Alaska, but at the national level. I always like to bring up my dad in this case. You know, my dad was only in Washington, D.C. for a couple of years, but one of the bills he pushed, one of the things he really pushed hard for was freshness dating on food, perishable food. I mean, you probably all didn't know that, did you?
Yeah, but leave it to an Alaskan to go, I actually want to know when these eggs are going bad, because they've got dinosaurs in them, and I think they're old.
Exactly.
You know?
That was that. Listen, I was a kid growing up here. Let me tell you, we got enough spoiled food.
Yeah, it's green. Don't eat it.
Don't eat it.
That's not supposed to be green, Mom.
But he also fought the SST, and that was because he didn't believe that that the supersonic transport was a safe environmental thing. So he was already carving out environmental ground back there in 1971 and 1972. Yep. And I think that's important for Alaskans to know. It was our people that were leading the charge there.
Well, Ernest Greening, Bob Bartlett, I mean, you look at 911. How many people have been saved through 911? And the original idea to bring that to America was from an Alaskan, the Americans with Disability Act.
Bob Bartlett.
And then you look at even Mike Gravel. In 1973, Mike Gravel was the one that pushed legislation to make it up to Congress to okay a pipeline.
That's right.
Which took several more years, and it took Democrats to vote for that, including Mike Gravel.
Now, to be fair, Don Young always claims that, but he's wrong. That was really Mike Gravel's initiative, built on Nick Begich's groundwork. So you're absolutely right about that.
So see, there's scarier things than a Democrat going to Washington.
That's
just right there. And so I think it's time to send another one, but that's just me being fair and balanced. So I really want to know, because we have national people, Nate Silver, so many people saying, and even locals, Jean Creation, who actually, when she talks about Lisa Murkowski, it's like she's riding a bull or something. She's just very excited, and a pollster. So, you know, we've got different people that are slanted. So your numbers are just numbers, though. So can you sort of show us how write-ins work?
Sure, I absolutely can. And I think it's important for people to sort all this stuff out. There's really two essential pieces to this. One is a historic piece, and the other piece to this is also just straight numbers. And so let me talk about...
You're looking very Johnny Depp, by the way.
Perhaps I'll get a date out of the show. I don't know.
It could happen.
But
this isn't a date? Oh, sorry. Okay, so
I always wanted to be Johnny Depp. You know, I think I could pull it off. But what I am is Johnny in depth. Okay. So that's what we're going to do right now. What I want to talk about, just first, share with you, Shannon, and share with your audience, is that historically we have examples in the state of Alaska of big write-in campaigns. I'm going to talk to you briefly about them, tell you exactly why write-in campaigns, even when they're done by really important people, don't go anywhere. I'm going to talk about that, and then I'm going to talk to you about the raw numbers of that write-in campaign, that write-in effort, and then I'm going to finish by talking about how, in fact, a Democrat gets to Washington, D.C. And I think that this is a very easy piece of math to do. So what I'm going to ask you guys out there is to bear with me, and I'm going to ask Shannon to interrupt me when I don't make sense anytime during this process. That good enough for you? Yeah. That's what I want to hear. We've had 3 write-in campaigns in the state of Alaska at a statewide level of any consequence. Now, the first of those campaigns was in 1968 when Mike Gravel beat Ernest Greening in his primary run to come back to Washington as a U.S. Senator. Now, Ernest Greening, who was a founder of our state, we were just talking about 911, things that Ernest Greening did, a hero for our state, ran a write-in campaign. Even though he ran that write-in campaign, does anybody remember the percentage he got? I'm going to tell you, it was 17% of the vote. Oops. Chalk is a flawed whiteboard product. If we had, that's why we all went to the others. But anyway, 17% is what Ernest Greening got in that campaign. Now, when Walter Hickel ran 10 years later for governor, he was defeated by Jay Hammond by 98 votes. Do you all remember the percentage he got? Now, he had a great campaign. You got to understand what he had. He sent stickers out to everyone in the state of Alaska. Now, I don't know who was here then, but I got that sticker because that was my first election. Red backing with dark writing on it, blue or black writing that said Walter Hickel, Walter J. Hickel for governor. His percentage, even though he sent that to every Alaskan in the state, was 26%.
Every single person got it?
Every single person got that who was a registered voter. Now, let me ask you the question out here. Can you mail something that you can take in like a sticker to the ballot booth now? No. It's against the law. It's electioneering in a ballot booth. That, a pen, a wristband, these are against the law. So that's not going to happen again. Now, you might say Hickel was a boring guy, had no following. I don't think you'd say that, though, because as we know, years later, he became governor running an independent campaign on a ballot line.
Right. It took him actually having his name on the ballot, though.
It had to be on the ballot, and that was the difference. If Wally Hickel can figure that out, certainly all of our progressive friends can, too. So let me go to the last point, which is Robin Taylor, 1998. We may remember that the Republican nominee that year was Cement Shoes Lindauer. Now, you may wonder why I call him that. That was because, remember, he was backed by the mafia, maybe linked cement dealer from Chicago who gave him all his money. So the Republican Party, to their credit, took him off the ballot. They nominated Robin Taylor, but they couldn't take Lindauer's name off the ballot. So Robin Taylor got 18% of the vote in that election.
And that was with the party backing.
Party backing, he had the money, he was the nominee, he was running a solid campaign. Do you know what Lindauer got with his name on the ballot as a discredited candidate not running a campaign? 17.8% of the vote. A candidate on the ballot, not even campaigning, got 17.8% of the vote. Now, why does that matter? Well, let me switch you to the numbers here. This is just a touch more exciting. If you come, I like to do that.
Just a touch.
You know, this is how Glenn Beck would do it. He'd be marking lines and circling, and he has colored chalk. I got white chalk, by the way.
It's not a racist thing.
All right. We're predicting 316,000 people are going to be the number that we have in this election. And we predict that based on past trends and stuff like that. Well, now, one gentleman, a friend of mine, Kelly, said recently that when he did the analysis, he found out that when you take the last 10 major candidate races that Democrats have run, we've averaged, all right, we haven't done that well, guys. Our low average, that's the lowest we got when you look at those, 31%. That's our low. Scott McAdams has a way of saying this. He says, actually says, if I could get as many votes as our least performing candidates, I'd still win this race. So I think that's the point, 31%. If you take the number that Joe Miller is now getting in polls, anywhere from 35 to 40%, but let's call it 35%. That number is going to put him at about 115,000 votes, okay? Well, let's worst case scenario, Scott McAdams has no money. He has a name on a ballot. He pulls the minimum that a Democrat's pulling these days. If they do no campaigning, let's just give them the 31% to start with. That's 110,000 votes approximately. What does that add up to? 215,000 votes. How many does that leave to play with? I'll tell you what it leaves, 101,000. 101. See, this is the problem that the write-in candidate faces. There aren't enough votes in the state of Alaska for a write-in candidate to win. And it's complicated by two things. The first thing it's complicated by is that not only does that candidate have to get 101,000, but you know how many people spelled Robin Taylor's name wrong in that write-in campaign? There's actually a record of it. About 5,000 people spelled his name wrong in one capacity or another. Because I know Taylor's difficult for some people to write. The good news is Murkowski isn't. That said, she really actually would have to get another probably anywhere from 7 to 10% higher than that number to make it work. 7 to 10% higher. So she's got to get another 7 to 10,000 votes on top of that to even be in the game, because they won't count. Even to even get that 101,000, and that still leaves her shy of both the other candidates.
So where is she pulling from? Where would she pull from right now?
Well, the only place she's pulling votes from right now is from the camp of those of us, the 2/3 of us, who tend to be progressives in the state of Alaska. Right now, with Lisa Murkowski in the race, it's a write-in that basically writes off Alaska, because what it does is it puts Joe Miller in the seat. And that's a problem. She can't win the race. There's only one person who can, and that's the Democrat who's on the ballot, Scott McAdams. If you want to defeat Joe Miller, there really is mathematically only one way to do it, and that's with Scott McAdams. The other thing is there's still 3 other candidates on the ballot. There's 2 independents, and there's a libertarian. So that's the uphill battle that a write-in faces that simply is unwinnable. Only one time in the history of America has a write-in candidate won for U.S. Senate, Strom Thurmond. And that was because he was replacing a dead man in a race with no Republican in it. Let me do one last thing, and then I'll be done. And I want you to know that this 100,000 here represents the amount of money in the last 40 days that Lisa Murkowski's website indicated she had raised. This 447,000 is the money that Joe Miller's website indicated he had raised in the last 40 days. And our fundraising as of today is this amount, which is 700. And I close with this. That matters because it's not going to be a campaign that doesn't run ads, that doesn't campaign. So really what you're faced with, if you're running a write-in campaign, you can't win because you've got a Democratic candidate to start with who's running a full-bore campaign. You don't have enough votes to do it, and you got a target, well, that's a perfect target for a Democratic candidate. So it's a chance, you know, to send those 2 Democrats back to Washington you were talking about earlier.
That's right, the perfect storm.
The perfect storm. Anyway, that's the math.
Well, thanks, Tom. I know that one of the things that I've noticed about the monies, too, that have come in to the different campaigns, you know, Lisa likes to talk about Joe Miller getting all of his money from the Tea Party Express and outside, but she's getting all of hers from K Street.
4,000 contributions of $200 or less. I think that's something people should know. 4,000 in 40 days for Scott McAdams.
These are individuals, and we don't have the breakout all the way percentage of those coming from Alaskans, but last I heard it was over 70%.
I don't know what the number is exactly, but it's definitely significantly greater than the other 2. So.
All right,
yeah.
So you're going to want to stay tuned, and thank you so much, Tom.
No, I'm glad to be here.
I liked all your Mr. Beckishness. It was great. Stay tuned with us. We're going to have some time with Scott McAdams and ask him some questions. And I just want to say Joe Miller was invited, but I think I don't know what he's doing, poaching a moose or having a nice big bowl of entitlements. I'm not sure. He's busy.
Checking that Medicaid payment.
That's right. So, and Lisa's practicing her name right now. So she's busy. But we'll be back with Scott McAdams in just a couple minutes.